Picture this. A 62-year-old man collapses in his workshop, his heart stopping for a full 17 minutes. But instead of darkness, he experiences an incredible journey through time, witnessing the Earth's creation and humanity's future. Is this just a dream, or proof that time travel is possible through near-death experiences? Join us as we explore one man's extraordinary tale that challenges our understanding of life, death, and the very fabric of time itself. My name is Orville Peterson, and I'm 62 years old. I never thought I'd be telling a story like this, but here I am. It all started on a muggy Thursday afternoon, August 23, 2023. I was in my workshop, tinkering with an old grandfather clock I'd been restoring for weeks. The air was thick with the smell of wood polish and metal cleaner. Sweat beaded on my forehead as I carefully adjusted the clock's intricate gears. I'd always been fascinated by time, how it ticks away, steady and unstoppable. Little did I know I was about to experience time in a way I never thought possible. As I reached for a small screwdriver, a sudden, sharp pain shot through my left arm. At first, I thought I'd just pulled a muscle, but then the pain spread to my chest. Felt like an elephant was sitting on me, squeezing the air out of my lungs. I tried to call out for help, but no sound came out. The room started spinning, and black spots danced in front of my eyes. The last thing I remember is the sound of the grandfather clock chiming 3 o'clock as I collapsed to the floor. When I opened my eyes again, I wasn't in my workshop anymore. I was floating in a vast empty space. There was no up or down, no left or right. Just nothingness. But then I heard a voice. It was unlike anything I'd ever heard before, deep and resonant, yet somehow gentle and comforting. "Orville," the voice said, "are you ready to witness the wonders of creation?" Before I could answer, everything around me exploded into light and color. It was like watching the universe being born right before my eyes. Stars and galaxies swirled into existence, planets formed from cosmic dust, and I saw it all happening in fast forward. Then I found myself hovering above a familiar blue and green planet, Earth. But it wasn't the Earth I knew. This Earth was young, barely formed. I watched in awe as continents shifted and oceans filled. Mountains rose from flat plains, and deep valleys carved themselves into the landscape. A voice spoke again, quoting words I recognized from the Bible. "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." I saw life begin in the primordial oceans. Tiny, single-celled organisms that would eventually evolve into all the diverse creatures that inhabit our planet. I watched fish grow legs and venture onto land, saw massive dinosaurs roam the earth, and then witnessed their extinction in a blinding flash of light, and a cloud of dust blocked out the sun. Time seemed to speed up even more. I saw the rise of mammals, and then, in the blink of an eye, the appearance of early humans. I watched our ancestors learn to use tools, discover fire, and create the first works of art on cave walls. I witnessed the birth of civilization, the building of the pyramids in Egypt, the construction of the Great Wall of China, the rise and fall of ancient empires. I saw wars that reshaped continents and plagues that decimated populations. But I also saw incredible acts of kindness and love. Moments of discovery and invention pushed humanity forward. Then something incredible happened. I found myself in Bethlehem, witnessing the birth of Jesus Christ. I saw him grow up, teach, and perform miracles. With a heavy heart, I watched his crucifixion, feeling the weight of its significance more than I ever had before. But then I experienced the joy of his resurrection, understanding the true meaning of his sacrifice in a way that words could never adequately describe. As I continued my journey through time, I saw how God's plan unfolded throughout history. I watched as Christianity spread across the world, bringing hope and comfort to millions. I saw the construction of great cathedrals, heard the beautiful hymns of praise, and witnessed countless acts of charity and love inspired by faith. But my journey wasn't just about the past. Suddenly, I was propelled into the future. I saw cities that stretched into the sky, vehicles that flew through the air, and people living on other planets. I witnessed incredible medical advancements that cured diseases we thought incurable. I saw a world where clean energy had replaced fossil fuels and where humanity lived in harmony with nature. However, I also saw the consequences of our actions if we strayed from God's path. I witnessed rising seas swallowing coastal cities, extreme weather devastating communities, and species disappearing at an alarming rate. I saw people turning away from faith, leading to a world filled with despair and conflict. The voice spoke again. Remember, Orville, the future is not set in stone. It is shaped by the choices we make today. I understood then that what I was seeing wasn't a predetermined outcome. It was a possible future, one that could be changed if we made different choices. Choices rooted in faith, love, and respect for God's creation. As I pondered this, I felt myself being pulled back. The images of the future faded away, and I found myself in a tunnel of bright, warm light. I could feel love and peace emanating from the light, more intense than anything I'd ever experienced on earth. At the end of the tunnel, I saw a figure of pure light. Although I couldn't make out any features, I knew in my heart that I was in the presence of Jesus Christ. He spoke to me, not in words, but in a way that resonated through my entire being. He showed me visions of my life, the good deeds I'd done, times I'd fallen short, the people I'd impacted without even realizing it. I felt no judgment, only pure, unconditional love. I understood that every action, every choice we make, ripples through time in ways we can't always see. Then Jesus gave me a mission. He told me that I needed to go back, that my time on earth wasn't finished yet. I had been given this incredible experience for a reason. To share what I had learned, to help people understand the true nature of time and our place in God's plan. As much as I wanted to stay in that place of perfect peace and love, I knew I had to return. I had a purpose to fulfill. Suddenly, I was back in my body, gasping for air. I opened my eyes to find myself on the floor of my workshop, surrounded by paramedics. They were shouting something about a miracle and 17 minutes with no heartbeat. As they loaded me into the ambulance, I tried to tell them about my experience. The words wouldn't come. I was overwhelmed by everything I had seen and learned. How could I possibly explain it all? In the hospital, the doctors ran test after test, amazed that I had suffered no brain damage despite being clinically dead for so long. They called it a medical mystery, but I knew it was much more than that. It was a divine intervention, a journey through time orchestrated by God Himself. My wife Hazel barely left my side during my hospital stay. When I finally found the words to tell her about my experience, I expected disbelief or concern. Instead, she listened with tears in her eyes, holding my hand tightly. "I believe you, Orville," she said softly. "God has given you an incredible gift." "But what?" "By you." I squeezed her hand, feeling a sense of purpose I'd never known before. "I think I know why, Hazel. I've been given a mission. I need to share what I've seen, what I've learned. People need to know that time isn't what we think it is, that our actions have consequences that echo through eternity, and that God's love for us is more vast and incredible than we can imagine." As I lay in that hospital bed, I knew my life would never be the same. I had traveled through time, witnessed the grand tapestry of God's creation, and been given a second chance. This was just the beginning. My real journey, the journey of sharing this message with the world, was about to begin. Little did I know that this experience would lead me on an even greater adventure. One that would challenge everything I thought I knew about faith, science, and the nature of reality itself. But that's a story for another chapter. The days following my near-death experience were a whirlwind of medical tests, concerned visitors, and sleepless nights filled with vivid memories of my journey through time. I was released from the hospital on a sunny Tuesday, exactly 1 week after my heart attack. The doctors called my recovery miraculous and unprecedented. But I knew it was more than that. It was part of God's plan. As Hazel drove us home, I couldn't help but see the world differently. Every tree, every building, every person we passed seemed to glow with a divine light. I realized that my journey hadn't just shown me the past and future. It had opened my eyes to the present in a whole new way. "Hazel," I said, turning to my wife, "I need to tell people about what happened to me. It's not just a story, it's a message from God." Hazel glanced at me, her eyes filled with a mix of love and concern. "I know, Orville, but are you sure you're ready for that? People might not understand. They might think you're, well, you know." I nodded, understanding her worry. "They might think I'm crazy, but I have to try. This is too important to keep to myself." When we got home, I was surprised to find our small ranch house filled with people. Our children, grandchildren, and even some of our neighbors had gathered to welcome me back. As I looked at their familiar faces, I felt a surge of love and gratitude. These were the people God had set me back for. Our oldest grandson, Tommy, ran up to me with a big grin. "Grandpa, did you see any dinosaurs when you were in heaven?" The room fell silent, and I could feel everyone's eyes on me. This was my chance to start sharing my story. I sat down in my favorite armchair and motioned for everyone to gather around. "Well, Tommy," I began, "I didn't exactly go to heaven, but I did see dinosaurs and a whole lot more. Let me tell you about it." For the next 2 hours, I recounted my journey through time. I told them about witnessing the creation of the earth, the rise and fall of civilizations, and the life of Jesus Christ. I described the future I had seen, both the wonders and the warnings, and I shared the overwhelming sense of love and purpose I had felt in the presence of God. As I spoke, I could see a range of emotions on their faces: wonder, skepticism, confusion, and even fear. But most of all, I saw curiosity. They wanted to understand, to make sense of what I was telling them. When I finished, the room was quiet for a long moment. Then, our neighbor Bob, a retired physics teacher, spoke up. "Orville, what you're describing, it goes against everything we know about the laws of physics. Time travel isn't possible." I smiled at Bob, remembering how I would have said the same thing just a week ago. "I used to think that too, Bob. But what if our understanding of time is incomplete? What if there's more to it than what we can measure with our instruments?" This sparked a lively discussion. Some, like our daughter Sarah, a devout Christian, saw my experience as a divine revelation. Others, like our son-in-law Mark, a doctor, looked for scientific explanations. Could it have been a hallucination caused by lack of oxygen to my brain, or perhaps a vivid dream during my unconscious state? I listened to their theories with patience, but in my heart, I knew the truth. What I had experienced was real, more real than anything in my life, before or since. As the evening wore on and our guests began to leave, I felt a mixture of relief and frustration. I had shared my story, but I wasn't sure how many people truly believed me. How could I convince them of the truth and importance of my experience? That night, as Hazel and I got ready for bed, she turned to me with a serious look. "Orville, I've been thinking. Maybe there's a reason why God showed you all of this. Maybe you're supposed to do more than just tell people about it." I sat on the edge of the bed, intrigued. "What do you mean?" She sat beside me, taking my hand in hers. "Well, you've always been good with machines, especially clocks. And now you've experienced time in a way no one else has. What if you could find a way to, I don't know, prove it somehow, or at least help people understand it better?" Her words struck a chord in me. I thought about my workshop, about the grandfather clock I'd been working on when I had my heart attack. Could there be a connection? That night, I had another vivid dream. I saw myself back in that timeless space, surrounded by stars and galaxies. The voice I had heard before spoke to me again. "Orville," it said, "you've been given a glimpse into the true nature of time. But understanding is not enough. You must help others see." When I woke up, I knew what I had to do. I got dressed quickly and headed to my workshop, ignoring Hazel's concerned calls about taking it easy. In the workshop, I looked at the grandfather clock with new eyes. Its steady ticking seemed to echo the heartbeat of the universe I had witnessed. I began to sketch out ideas, drawing on both my mechanical knowledge and the cosmic insights I had gained. Days turned into weeks as I worked tirelessly on my project. I called it the Kronos Viewer, a device that, I hoped, would allow people to see time the way I had during my near-death experience. It wasn't easy. I faced countless setbacks and frustrations. There were times when I thought I was crazy for even trying. But every time I was about to give up, I would remember the mission I had been given, the love I had felt in that timeless space, and I would push on. Hazel was my rock through it all. She brought me meals in the workshop, listened to my excited ramblings about temporal physics and divine geometry, and never once doubted my sanity. Her faith in me kept me going, even when my own faith wavered. As word spread about my project, I began to receive visitors. Some were curious neighbors, others were journalists looking for a story. A few were even scientists, intrigued by the rumors of a device that could visualize time in a new way. One day, a young physicist named Dr. Samantha Chen came to see me. She had heard about my near-death experience and my work on the Kronos viewer. "Mr. Peterson," she said, looking at my device with a mixture of skepticism and curiosity, "can you explain to me how this is supposed to work?" I smiled, remembering my own skepticism before my journey. "Well, Dr. Chen, it's based on the idea that time isn't just a linear progression. It's more like a fabric, woven together with space. My device doesn't move through time. It allows us to see the weave of that fabric." She raised an eyebrow. "That sounds more like philosophy than physics." "Maybe the two aren't as separate as we think," I replied. "After all, didn't Einstein say that the distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion?" This caught her attention. We spent hours discussing theories of time, quantum mechanics, and the nature of consciousness. By the end of our conversation, Dr. Chen was looking at my Kronos viewer with new respect. "Mr. Peterson," she said as she was leaving, "I'm not sure I believe in near-death experiences or time travel, but I do believe you're onto something here. Would you be open to collaborating with my team at the university? We might be able to help you refine your ideas." I agreed eagerly. This was exactly what I had been hoping for. Chance to bridge the gap between my spiritual experience and the world of science. Over the next few months, I worked closely with Dr. Chen and her team. We ran experiments, refined the Kronos viewer, and even published a paper in a respected physics journal. Our work was controversial, but it was starting conversations about the nature of time that had never been had before. But even as my work gained scientific recognition, I never lost sight of the spiritual aspect of my mission. I continued to share my story with anyone who would listen, speaking at churches, community centers, and even a few television interviews. One Sunday, I was invited to speak at our local church. As I stood at the pulpit, looking out at the familiar faces of our congregation, I felt a sense of purpose stronger than ever before. "Brothers and sisters," I began, "I stand before you today, not just as your neighbor and friend, but as a witness to the incredible majesty of God's creation. I have seen the beginning of time and glimpsed its end. I have witnessed the life of our Lord Jesus Christ and felt the immeasurable love of our Creator. And I am here to tell you that time is not what we think it is. It is not a prison that constrains us, but a gift that connects us to eternity." As I spoke, I could see the impact my words were having. People leaned forward in their seats, their eyes wide with wonder. Some were crying, others nodding in understanding. I realized that my experience wasn't just for me, it was for all of them too. After the service, people crowded around me, eager to ask questions and share their own thoughts. One elderly woman took my hand, her eyes shining with tears. "Thank you, Orville," she said softly. "You've given me hope. I've always been scared of dying, but now I'm not afraid anymore. I know there's more waiting for us." Her words touched me deeply. I realized that my journey through time had given me more than just knowledge. It had given me the ability to bring comfort and hope to others. As I drove home that day, with Hazel by my side, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I knew that my work was far from over. There were still many questions to answer, many people to reach. But I also knew that I was on the right path. "You know, Hazel," I said, turning to my wife, "I used to think that time was something that happened to us. Now I realize it's something that happens through us. We're all part of this grand tapestry of time, each of us a thread connecting the past to the future." Hazel smiled, squeezing my hand. "And you, my dear, have been given a glimpse of the whole tapestry. What a gift that is." I nodded, feeling grateful beyond words. As we pulled into our driveway, I looked up at the sky, marveling at the vastness of the universe. I knew that somewhere out there, beyond the limits of what we could see or measure, time was unfolding in ways we could barely imagine. And I, Orville Peterson, a simple clockmaker from a small town, had been chosen to help reveal those mysteries. It was a responsibility I never expected, but one I now embraced with all my heart. As I stepped out of the car, I felt ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. My journey through time had shown me the past and the future, but it had also taught me the importance of the present. Every moment was a gift, an opportunity to make a difference, to spread love and understanding. With that thought in mind, I walked into my house, ready to face the next chapter of my extraordinary journey. As the weeks turned into months, my life took on a new rhythm. My days were split between working on the Kronos viewer, with Dr. Chen's team, speaking at various events about my experience, and spending quiet moments in my workshop, reflecting on the incredible journey I'd been on. One crisp autumn morning, as I tinkered with the latest version of the Kronos viewer, I received an unexpected call. It was from a producer at a national news network. They wanted to feature my story and the Kronos viewer on a primetime special about near-death experiences and cutting-edge science. At first, I was hesitant. I'd done local interviews before, but this was different. This was national television. What if I couldn't explain my experience properly? What if people thought I was just a crazy old man? Hazel, as always, was my voice of reason. "Orville," she said, her eyes twinkling, "isn't this exactly what you've been working towards? A chance to share your message with more people?" She was right, of course. This was an opportunity I couldn't pass up. I agreed to do the interview, and soon found myself in a whirlwind of preparations. The day of the interview arrived faster than I expected. As I sat in the studio, bright lights shining on me, I took a deep breath and silently asked God for guidance. The interviewer, kind-faced woman named Rachel, smiled at me. "Mr. Peterson, you claim to have traveled through time during a near-death experience. Can you tell us more about that?" I nodded, feeling a sense of calm wash over me. "Well, Rachel, it wasn't like the time travel you see in movies. I didn't physically go anywhere. But my consciousness, my spirit, it journeyed through the fabric of time itself. I saw the birth of the universe, the entire history of our planet, and even glimpses of possible futures." Rachel leaned forward, intrigued. "And you say this experience led you to create the Kronos viewer. How does this device work?" I smiled, thinking of how to explain it in simple terms. The Kronos viewer doesn't let you travel through time. Instead, it helps you see time differently. Imagine time as a tapestry. Normally, we only see one thread at a time, present moment. Kronos viewer lets you step back and see more of the tapestry at once. As the interview continued, I shared more about my experience and the insights it had given me. I talked about the interconnectedness of all things, profound love I had felt in the presence of God, and the responsibility we all have to shape the future. To my surprise, Rachel seemed genuinely moved by my story. "Mr. Peterson," she said softly, "your experience challenges everything we think we know about time, life, and death. What do you hope people will take away from your story?" I thought for a moment before answering. "I hope people will understand that time is more than just a ticking clock. It's a gift that connects us to eternity. Every moment, every choice we make ripples through time in ways we can't always see. I want people to realize the power they have to shape not just their own future, the future of all creation." After the interview aired, the response was overwhelming. My phone rang off the hook with calls from people all over the country. Some wanted to share their own near-death experiences. Others were scientists intrigued by the Kronos viewer, and many were simply people searching for hope and meaning in their lives. One call in particular stood out. It was from a young man named Tyler. He sounded nervous as he spoke. "Mr. Peterson," he said, his voice shaky, I've been struggling with thoughts of ending my life. But when I heard your story, something changed. The way you talked about every moment being connected to eternity made me realize that my life has meaning, even when I can't see it." I felt tears well up in my eyes as I listened to Tyler. This was why God had sent me back. Not just to share knowledge, but to offer hope. "Tyler," I said gently, "your life is precious. Every moment, every breath, is a thread in the grand tapestry of time. You may not be able to see the whole picture right now, but trust me, your thread is essential." We talked for over an hour. By the end of the call, Tyler had promised to seek help and give life another chance. As I hung up the phone, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. My journey through time had given me the words to reach someone in their darkest moment. In the weeks that followed, I received more calls and letters like Tyler's. People shared how my story had given them a new perspective on life, death, and the nature of time itself. It was humbling and awe-inspiring to see how my experience was touching so many lives. Meanwhile, work on the Kronos viewer continued to progress. Dr. Chen and her team had made several breakthroughs, and we were getting closer to creating a working prototype that could actually visualize the fabric of time. One day, as we were running tests in the lab, something extraordinary happened. Kronos viewer suddenly lit up with a burst of energy, projecting a swirling vortex of light and color onto the lab wall. We all stood in stunned silence, watching as images flickered through the vortex. I saw glimpses of the past, dinosaurs roaming ancient forests, pyramids being built, great battles being fought. Then came flashes of the future. Gleaming cities, strange vehicles, people living on other planets. It lasted only a few seconds before the device overloaded and shut down. But in those few seconds, everyone in that lab had seen what I had seen during my near-death experience. The interconnected nature of all time. Dr. Chen turned to me, eyes wide with amazement. "Mr. Peterson," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "I think we just changed the world." News of our breakthrough spread quickly. Scientists from around the world wanted to study the Kronos viewer. Religious leaders sought to understand its implications for faith and spirituality. Government officials expressed both excitement and concern about the potential applications of our discovery. As exciting as it all was, I couldn't help but feel a bit overwhelmed. This was bigger than anything I had imagined when I first started tinkering in my workshop. I found myself turning to prayer more and more, seeking guidance on how to use this gift responsibly. One night, as I sat in my workshop looking at the Kronos viewer, I had another vivid dream. I saw myself standing before a great shimmering tapestry that seemed to stretch infinitely in all directions. Each thread glowed with its own light, and I could see how they all wove together, create a pattern of indescribable beauty. The familiar voice spoke to me again. "Orville," it said, "you have done well. You have helped others see the true nature of time. But remember, with great knowledge comes great responsibility." I nodded, understanding the weight of those words. "What should I do?" I asked. The voice replied, "Continue to share the truth, but also teach wisdom. The future is not set in stone. It is shaped by the choices of all living beings. Help them understand the power they hold." When I woke up, I knew what I had to do. The Kronos viewer wasn't just a scientific instrument. It was a tool for teaching and inspiring. I began organizing workshops and seminars, bringing together scientists, theologians, philosophers, and ordinary people to discuss the nature of time and our role in shaping the future. These gatherings were often intense, filled with passionate debates and moments of profound insight. We grappled with big questions. If we can see possible futures, do we have an obligation to try and create the best one? How do free will and predestination coexist in a universe where all time is interconnected? What is our responsibility to future generations? Through it all, I kept coming back to the simple truths I had learned during my journey through time. The importance of love, compassion, and faith. The power of each individual to make a difference. The eternal nature of the soul. As word of our work spread, I began receiving invitations to speak at international conferences and forums. I found myself traveling the world, sharing my story and the insights we had gained from the Kronos viewer. One particularly memorable event was a United Nations Summit on climate change. I was invited to give a keynote speech about the future implications of our current action. As I stood at the podium, looking out at the gathered world leaders, I felt the weight of responsibility on my shoulders. "Distinguished delegates," I began, "I stand before you today not just as a man who has glimpsed the future, but as a representative of all the generations yet to come. I have seen the consequences of the choices we make today rippling through time. I have witnessed futures where our planet thrives and futures where it withers. The path we take is up to us." I went on to describe some of the potential futures I had seen, both promising ones and the devastating ones. I talked about the interconnectedness of all things, how actions taken in one part of the world could have far-reaching effects across time and space. "But here's the most important thing I learned from my journey through time," it continued. "The future is not set in stone. Every choice, every action, no matter how small it may seem, has the power to change the course of history. You, sitting here today, have the power to shape the future of our planet. Response was overwhelming. Many of the delegates were moved to tears. In the days that followed, several countries announced new, more ambitious climate goals. It was a powerful reminder of the ripple effect our actions can have. As the years passed, I watched with joy and amazement as the ideas we had uncovered began to take root in the world. People started to think more long-term, considering the future implications of their actions. There was a growing sense of global unity, a recognition that we were all part of the same cosmic tapestry. The Kronos viewer itself continued to evolve. We developed new versions that could be used in schools, museums, and research institutions around the world. It became a tool not just for scientific discovery, but for education, conflict resolution, and even therapy. But even as our understanding of time grew, I never lost sight of the spiritual aspect of my experience. I continued to speak at churches and faith gatherings, reminding people that behind the scientific wonders we were uncovering was a loving Creator who had set it all in motion. As I entered my twilight years, I felt a deep sense of peace and fulfillment. My near-death experience had set me on an incredible journey, one that had touched more lives than I could have ever imagined. One evening, as Hazel and I sat on our porch watching the sunset, she turned to me with a smile. "You know, Orville," she said, "when you first told me about your experience, I thought maybe you'd hit your head when you fell. But now I can't imagine our life any other way." I chuckled, squeezing her hand. "Been quite a ride, hasn't it?" She nodded, her eyes twinkling. "So, Mr. Time Traveler, any glimpses of what's next for us?" I smiled, thinking of all I had seen and experienced. "Well, my dear, if there's one thing I've learned, it's that the future is full of surprises. But whatever comes next, I know it'll be another grand adventure." As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant hues of orange and purple, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. My journey through time had shown me the vastness of creation and the intricate web of connections that bound all things together. But it had also shown me the importance of this moment, right here and now. I may have traveled through time, but the greatest journey of all was the one I was on right now. The journey of life, with all its joys and sorrows, its challenges and triumphs. And as I sat there, hand in hand with my beloved Hazel, I knew that this journey was far from over. The future stretched out before us, full of possibilities. And I, Orville Peterson, once a simple clockmaker, now a traveler of time, was ready for whatever adventures lay ahead. If you've been moved by Orville's incredible journey through time, don't keep this story to yourself. Share it with others who might find hope, inspiration, or a new perspective on life. Hit that like button to help more people discover this extraordinary tale. Subscribe to our channel for more mind-bending stories that challenge our understanding of the universe. And don't forget to ring that notification bell. You won't want to miss our upcoming episodes exploring the mysteries of consciousness, the nature of reality, and the frontiers of human potential. Remember, just like Orville discovered, every action we take and rippled through time. Your simple click could be the start of someone else's life-changing journey.